This is The Spot, a BYU-Idaho radio production where we talk about what you're talking about. Today's hosts are Soraya Bosted, Natalie Lundquist, and Nate Eaton. The views and opinions of this podcast are not that of BYU-Idaho Radio or the university and are solely the opinions of the hosts. Welcome back to The Spot podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Lundquist. I'm here with my co-host,
Soraya Bosted.
And we have a wonderful guest host on today, Mr. Nate Eaton. So Nate has always wanted to be a reporter, and that's what he ended up doing. He graduated from BYU-Idaho, started a journalism career at KIDK in IF, and after 3 years, he ended up going over to Richmond and worked at WRIC. And he's reported a bunch in his entire life. And in 2015, he moved back to Idaho Falls and helped launch East Idaho News. And we are so grateful to have him on today. So how are you doing today, Nate?
I'm good. Thank you both for having me. It seems like it wasn't that long ago that I was sitting probably in the very same studio you guys are in, interviewing people. So it's kind of come full circle for me. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, of course. So as Soraya and I were kind of thinking about podcast ideas, we kind of just realized there is so much negativity going on in the world and so much just negative news and hurt and heartbreak going on that we're like, let's go and look for the good things happening, spread a little bit of positivity. And I know for me, I have some apps on my phone that's like, it's like the Good News app, Good News Network, and Mood Boost News. So that's where I find like good news. But I'm curious, Nate, with East Idaho News, how do you kind of search out those stories and like decide what stories are going to go on the air?
That's a great question. We get asked that a lot. And we try to do as much positive, uplifting news as we can because you're right. You can get stuck in the rut of only reporting on crime and courts and house fires and car crashes and horrible things like that. But I have found generally out of all of the tragedies I've reported, there's always something good that comes from it. In the midst of tragedy, there's always people who are helping. There's always people who change, who become better, people who learn to forgive, and people who change. And so that's kind of what you can look for in those type of stories. But as far as what East Idaho News does, we have a meeting every morning with our reporting staff, and we discuss what's happening in our communities and what's going on at City Hall and what's happening in the courts that day. And often, I would say daily, several times a day, we will get emails. Just the other day, we got an email from a woman. She said, I want to give a flower to every girl in the Bonneville County District 93 for Valentine's, and I want to do it anonymously. Well, that's a cool, unique story. That doesn't happen every day, that someone anonymously spends a lot of money on flowers to bless the lives of so many people. But because we got this email, we were able to pursue the story and interview her and talk with girls who received the flowers, and a lot of people read that story and shared that story, and it was some good news. Now, we could have put the resources for that story into something else that may have gotten a little bit more clicks, or if we were television, may have gotten a few more viewers. But this was a story that we thought was important to tell. So we try to use our best news judgment we can. If somebody emailed us that story every day, we wouldn't do it every day because then it's not news. News is something that's unique, different, something that we may not have heard before, or something that, makes us smile or makes us feel something. And, that's kind of how we decide what to post, what to go after. I personally love doing feature stories, so I will try to do as many positive, feel-good stories as I can.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great story. I love that about the woman giving all the roses. That's super cool.
That's cute.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, and it impacted not only the girls there at the school, in the school system, but hopefully our readers and our watchers, our viewers can see that, or anybody listening to this podcast, and they can say, hey, I want to do something like that. Because you never know who's going to see it, who's going to read it, who's going to share it, and who it's going to impact. And so, that's the amazing thing about the internet, is that it's out there forever, and you never know who it's going to touch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. Soraya, did you leading up to the podcast, did you see any stories or think of anything that?
I didn't personally see any, but I was kind of unavailable this weekend doing family stuff, so I wasn't really able to fully invest. To be fair, I didn't look at bad news either, so it was just a news-free weekend for me.
That's fair, in all honesty. I know I was looking at my apps that I have, and this one stood out to me, and it's this man who, his wife was just fed up with the fact that he doesn't go hang out with friends. And so he posted an ad on a bunch of telephone poles saying that he needs friends, and so he's going to have a pancake social. And is making pancakes for all his neighbors. It's on this day at this time, and I'm like, you know what, that's the type of news I like to see.
Funny.
Just a
that's
wholesome,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, food always brings people together, and you can find a lot of fun stories surrounded by food. My daughter, she's 8, and she started interviewing people just in the community about a year ago for a little segment she called 7 Questions with Emmy, and then it expanded to celebrities, and now she's a contributor on the Drew Barrymore show. And so whenever she was just in New York City a couple of months ago, and they did a whole segment about these cookies. This mother in Idaho Falls was on food stamps. She did not have a lot of money to care for her family or to buy food, and so she started making these incredible cookies, and they were decorated. They were works of art. They were so beautiful, and so she started selling these cookies, and the business took off. She was able to get off food stamps, and now this is a full-time gig for her. She calls herself the Cookie Momster. And the Drew Barrymore show, my daughter told them about this, and they said, "Well, bring some cookies from Idaho to New York City, and we'll feature them on the air." And that can inspire people across the country who might, be down in the dumps, who might not have a lot of means, who know that they need to do something and they have talent. They just don't know how to turn it into a paid skill like this wonderful woman did. And so that is another example of how using the good in the media and sharing the good for the media can help impact others, not only making them feel good, but helping them make money, helping them start a business, helping them, provide for their families. And in turn, it's the ripple effect of others around them.
Mm-hmm. Wow. No, yeah, that's so true. That kind of shocks me, though, because, you first started talking about your daughter. I'm like, oh, that's so cute. And then you were like, Drew Barrymore show, New York. And I was like, whoa. Okay.
Yeah, it kind of took off.
I was like, that's a lot bigger than I expected. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure your daughter's done more than I have in the 22 years I've been alive.
Yeah, people will say yes to her for an interview and no to me, even though I've been a journalist for 15 years. My daughter gets the exclusive.
Yeah. Well, there's a story for you in itself.
Mm-hmm. So
exactly.
I just remembered some good news that I did see last night. Last night. So Sunday was the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. One of the players for the Rams, the winning team of the Super Bowl, his wife was in the hospital giving birth. So he won the Super Bowl and then was able to go meet his new, I think, daughter.
Oh, that's so cute.
In the hospital on the same day that he won the Super Bowl.
That is so cute. Aw.
Yeah, that's a day he'll never forget. You go home with the Super Bowl ring and, by the way, a baby, too. I mean, that's something special. I don't know if that'll ever happen again for that family.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just lucky because the Super Bowl was in L.A., so he was able to be
there.
Home and be there.
Yeah. Awesome for anyone who's a Rams fan, too. Mm-hmm. There's some good news for you. Bengals fans, maybe not so much, but I saw another cute story that these kindergartners in Florida were like so upset that they've never seen snow. And so their teacher, she has a sister who, I can't remember where it said she lives. I think it said like Utah or something. Somehow shipped a snowman like on ice or something for these kindergartners so that they could see snow. So cute.
That reminds me of a story I did in Rexburg, where you guys are, about a father. He's a doctor in Rexburg, and he creates these igloos and in his backyard with his kids, and they're these gigantic, beautiful sculptures. And he takes lasagna pans and fills them up with water, like 100 lasagna pans, and he adds food color into each pan, and they freeze. So then he covers the igloo with these colored lasagna pans, and they light up at night, and it's a beautiful, beautiful sculpture. And I think it took him this year 80 hours to build this igloo. So he'll go to the hospital, deliver babies, come home, work on the igloo, and now the igloo has been photographed. His wife's a photographer, and it's made several good news websites across the country of what an artistic mind can do in his backyard with his kids, creating this beautiful igloo that, I could never do something like that. I'm not artistic, but this guy's got it down.
That's so cool.
It's really cool.
I want to know how he would even go about doing that.
I know.
I'm I would make snow forts growing up, but igloos are a whole different thing. That's crazy. I love that.
Oh, and more international news, when the Olympics were going on, a 40-year-old snowboarder who'd been to 4 Olympics won his first gold medal.
That's crazy, dude. That's awesome. Good for him. Well, there's a news story about a baby gorilla that was born prematurely but was reunited with his family. So that's cute.
Like I said, you can do anytime you've got food or I guess animals, food or animals. People always love those stories, and cute kids.
That is true. Animals and kids are a lot more fun to read about than adults.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, this is kind of cool. This brings good news along with just how much technology is improving in the world. It's the organization Habitat for Humanity. They made their first 3D printed home.
Oh.
Yeah, just full on 3D printed, and
Dang.
They ended up selling it to a single mom. So it's a little bit of good news with a little bit of Go America's technology in there. I know. I've seen there's been a lot of news stories about endangered species and how they're finally being protected again. So that I think is really, really cool. I don't know. I feel with how much negativity there is in the world, it's these news stories, it's I don't like how much it takes to search them out.
Yeah.
I feel they should be more accessible because stuff like this is what's going to unite the nation.
Yeah.
It really is. I'm with all the hatred and negativity and all that going on in the news, it's that's just dividing people more because then they get angrier. But then with this type of stuff, no one can deny that this type of stuff is great.
Yeah.
And so it's this is the thing that we're all going to agree on.
Yeah.
Well, like I said earlier, anytime that there is something that there's a national tragedy or a horrible shooting, or I covered last May a shooting at a school in Rigby, Idaho, and showed up and was on the scene for hours. Fortunately, nobody was seriously injured, but the community outpouring that came from that was just incredible. There was the authorities came to us and said, we need some water for the kids who are just waiting to be picked up by their parents. And so we were doing a live broadcast, and I said on our website, they really need some water if you can bring some bottles of water. And before you knew it, there was pickup trucks full of water, a line of pickup trucks, people bringing cases and cases and cases of water and snacks and all sorts of stuff for the kids that were in need there that day. That were in the midst of this horrible tragedy, but yet the community was coming together to help them. And I've seen that happen in every single tragedy I've covered. There was a boy who I covered who disappeared in a huge Civil War battlefield in Virginia several years ago. He was a little boy with autism who couldn't speak, and he was with his family, and he just vanished. And it turned into a weeks-long search for this child, 2 weeks long, and there was thousands of people who came to volunteer their time just to look for a stranger. And there was people that were dropping off food for the volunteers, and there was businesses donating things, and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars just donated for free. Nobody wanted any credit. Nobody wanted any, praise on the news. They just wanted to help. And fortunately, this boy was found alive after, I think, 10 days, and there was a big community celebration that night. And those are the highlights that happen in the midst of a tragedy. And it was Mr. Rogers who said something that anytime you see something really scary on the news, anytime you read about something really scary, look for the helpers. Look for the people who are helping, because those are the things that you'll remember, and those are the things that you'll hold on to. And if you can't find helpers, then be one. Go out and be the helper. And so anytime anybody listening to this podcast sees something horrible on the news, or you think it's so depressing and so dark, which it is, it can be, look for the helpers. And consider the news like a plate, like a meal. You can't just have dessert all the time, like the hard news, serious news. You can't just have vegetables all the time. You can't just have meat all the time. You got to have a balance in your news consumption. And so get a little bit of that. But if you find yourself too addicted to the gossip sites or too addicted to the news, like you were saying earlier, go out and seek out some of those positive stories that'll make you feel good.
No, yeah, that's so true. I never thought about it that way, looking for the helpers in it, which, I mean, it makes sense for sure. Like, there's gonna be positivity in everything, even if it's just a small glimpse of it. You just have to be looking for it and paying attention to it. But I don't think I know of any other news stories. Do you, Sarah?
No. Well, the only one I was thinking of was like the one that Brother Al showed us a couple weeks ago of the little boy putting his book in the library in Boise, which was just really cute and like
that was
really funny.
Sweet. Yeah. Yeah, no, that one was really, really sweet. There was one our senior project teacher showed us of the little girl who thought that this bride who was taking pictures was Cinderella, and so she would like come over to their house in her wedding dress and like pretend to be Cinderella for this little girl. So cute. But I don't know, are there any recent stories of good news or positivity that have come across your station?
Well, hopefully we have a lot that we're doing, as often as we can. I'm currently working on here's an example of how you can find good stories no matter where you go. The other day I took my kids to Chick-fil-A, for breakfast. It was Saturday. My wife was away with my daughter, so I had my sons, and they were being noisy and crazy, and I just wanted to, get out of the house. They could go play at the play place, and I could have some peace and quiet at the table. So we get to the Chick-fil-A. They go in the play place. I'm sitting at the table, and it's like eerily quiet, even though there's a group of people sitting right across from me. And I look over, and they're all communicating with each other with sign language. So they were all obviously hearing impaired. And it was so fascinating to watch. They were in a really in-depth conversation. I could tell just how they were signing with each other. But I didn't want to stare, and I didn't want to be, too obtrusive, and so I kind of turned away. But then one of the young men's motioned for me to look, and I looked over, and he was able to talk, and he said, "Can I get a selfie with you?" He recognized me from the news. So we took a picture, and I kind of started to ask them questions of, what are you guys doing here? And they told me that two of the kids go to BYU-Idaho, and one of the kids goes to the deaf and blind school in Idaho. And I said, I had no idea there was a school for the deaf and the blind in Idaho. And they said it's in Gooding, and there's about 200 children from the whole state. And this boy who's 18, he'll leave Monday, and he'll stay out there all day. There's little cottages that the kids can stay in, and they really get to be around their community. And I had no idea that this even existed. And so we chatted, and here's a bunch of young people that were just inspiring at Chick-fil-A, and now I want to do a story on them. And I found out, I did a little Facebook post about it, and some of the parents of other children that go to the school reached out to me, some in first grade that go and spend the whole week away from most of their family. They'll be with one parent, so they can go to school. They can be around people just like them. So that's something I plan to do. But you can look, like I said, look for the good news everywhere. You'll find it. Everybody's got something to share, and it can be positive, it can be negative, it can be both. There's always something.
That is so sweet. I didn't realize there was a school for that either. That's interesting. Wow. It really goes to show just like how much you're not seeing.
Yeah.
I feel like so many people like put these blinders on, and they see what they want to see, and they don't pay attention to things that may be really important or like really cool to learn about.
Mm-hmm. And then it's also like sad, like how much good news is going on that's not being reported, that people don't know about because it doesn't get as many clicks or views.
Yeah, definitely. That's like the one thing I don't like about like journalism is there's such just the emphasis on we need to do the stories that will get the most clicks. We need to do the story that will get the most views, which yes, but at the same time, maybe those stories aren't what the viewers need to be seeing.
Yeah.
But no, that's really interesting. I know definitely opened my eyes to what's out there and how to find different things, but yeah, I don't know. That's all I have. Do you guys have anything else you'd like to add before we end off?
I don't think so. I appreciate you having me, and I would encourage everyone to visit eastidahonews.com, and we'll give you the news. We do a segment every Friday called Feel Good Friday, where we go out and do something positive. So I can guarantee that every Friday morning you can wake up and find a positive story to start off your weekend right. But thank you both for having me, and I wish you all good news.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. We want to thank Nate for being on. We're so grateful for him. And to end off this podcast, we have another positive quote for you guys to put you on a good footing for the rest of your week. And this one's anonymous, but it says, "You will graduate, you will get a job, you will find love, you have an entire life. Things take time. Just enjoy where you are right now." So keep that in mind as you go through your week. We hope you have an amazing week, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to The Spot, a production of BYU-Idaho Radio. Today's hosts were Soraya Bosted, Natalie Lundquist, and Nate Eaton. The views and opinions of this podcast are not that of BYU-Idaho Radio or the university and are solely the opinions of the hosts. This episode was edited by Natalie Lundquist. Producers were the hosts with supervision by Brandon Isle. Our theme music is Finding Happiness by DJ Quads and The Perpetual Ticking of Time by Artificial Music. To listen to more episodes of The Spot, like and follow us on social media or visit our website byui.edu/radio and click podcasts. Be sure to subscribe to the BYU-Idaho Radio podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get podcasts. And also leave a review of the show and leave a comment on what we should talk about next.